Well, I just want to say welcome everybody to this masterclass on how to improve your game sense in Overwatch 2. And what I'm gonna focus on is how to understand the enemy correctly, how to understand their moves, how to just be able to react to their visuals, their cooldowns, what are they gonna be doing on the field. That's pretty large topic, and I think it's so important to just be able to know what you're gonna be doing based on just the enemy actions so far. So I'm just gonna use this brief presentation, and I also prepared a bunch of examples we could be going over with you later on too. But yeah, I think let's just keep an eye on. Okay, I need to also check if the metafile is working. Okay, I think we are all good. It should be all set. And I see 3 people, actually. I see 3 participants. I see 3 participants in the chat. By the way, guys, you can click the button here. There's just right at the bottom of your screen. It looks like the chat button, and you can message me with any questions, ask questions there. I guess let's just test out the things. How is that gonna work? But yeah, can you guys hear me? Does it work just fine for you? Just in case, I will send you the message. Yeah, let's just do it. Test message right there in the chat. Okay. Yeah, let me know. Yeah, let me know if you guys can see it. It works. Okay, perfect. I think you guys not able to see my webcam, but I'm recording with the webcam. I think it's just something to do with the website itself here on the Metafy. It just does not allow me the webcam. But honestly, we don't need it for the most part. We're just gonna be needing this presentation here, and we also need some of the examples I prepared. So let's just start with some of the basic things. Let's just go over Gamesense overview first. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna share the pro examples of how the players are applying, looking after just improving their game sense. Let's start with what Gamesense is. In my experience, Gamesense is all about understanding the information about the current game you're in and knowing how it affects you as a player. There are just so many things you can be aware of, generally speaking, and if you know how to react correctly, this is what separates the top tier player from the low rank, generally speaking. Yeah, just being able to gain information and knowing how to react to all the information accordingly, this helps out a lot. And that's why when you're building your game sense, it's more about just thinking about in-game situations and how it affects you as a player and how it affects your teammates as well. Yep. It's just gonna be a lot of trying to scout the information, trying to exactly read the information. So we're gonna talk about that, how to do that effectively. For others important specifics, game sense is, in my opinion, the most important topic in Overwatch. And to be honest, in any hero shooter, I would say that a lot of the times the main problems players face is not that they struggle with the quality of the plan, but is that they do not have a plan at all to start with. And to be honest, if you just exactly know how your plan is going to be looking like, it makes it so much easier for you to decide what is the next move is going to be on the field. And that's why put in an effort in building your game sense. Once you've done that enough, it will become more intuitive. Yeah, that's why a lot of people might tell you that, oh, well, this sort of should be your second nature. Yeah, you should sort of just know where everybody is on the field or what kind of cooldown they will be using. It's sort of intuitive. But to be honest, it just all becomes to putting an effort. Right, now let's just go right to the practical examples of how to do that. And yeah, as I mentioned, guys, if you have any questions, just message me in the chat, ask the questions there. For anyone who is going to watch this recording either on Metafy or YouTube, also leave your questions right in the description. I will be glad to answer. I mean, the comments, sorry, not description. Okay, let's just start with how to build the game sense. The basic, most important tech, and I don't know if you guys watched the YouTube video I also linked on my main channel, but I talked about some other text there, but what we're gonna focus on is the most important one, and it usually consists of the 3 steps, in my opinion. That's how I simplified it, to be honest. What you need to start with is understanding the enemy or your team, what your team is going to be doing, is built through thinking how it affects you as a player. And then after you know how it affects you as a player, you need to adjust your gameplay. And to be able to do that, here's the simple formula. You need to scout for something. You need to scout for specific information on the field and break it down with 3 W's. That's how I call it. It's going to be 3 questions. What are you doing on the field? When are you doing that? And where you're doing that? And then think about how it affects me. Okay, now let's just get more specific. Scouting for X. Yeah, X is just certain variable. Let's put it this way. It's just gonna be something, certain theme. And a lot of the times I break down the game on 5 big themes. It can be either your decisions, it can be your positioning, it can also be your timing, or understanding of the tempo, or mechanics. And once you broke down the scouting, you broke down it with exact theme, then answering the questions, it gives you direction of what you need to be doing next. For example, what my attention should be on. Yeah, when I specifically scout for positioning details, or maybe any timing details, what I gotta look at. Yeah, am I looking at exact my health bar to just identify when I'm low HP, or am I looking at anywhere else? Maybe a tunnel vision on my HP, or sorry, on my crosshair, or maybe if I try to get better at the timing, do I really look at my tank and the rest of my team, what are they doing? Or my attention is elsewhere? It's really important to figure out. You're exactly gonna know where your attention is, what kind of visuals and sounds you're gonna be looking after, because sounds is another important thing. And also, just knowing when to do it, what is the specific time, when is the best for you to look after this information, and where you do that, it's more about the in-game position. Yeah, maybe it has to be before the fight, maybe it's the middle of the fight, maybe it's after the fight, but it's gonna be somewhere. Just keep it simple. Those questions, they give you direction. You don't have to answer all those questions every single time, but I'm gonna be giving you exact examples of how pro players potentially doing that, even though it's maybe unintentionally, but you exactly see if you have those variables in mind, if you have those exact steps in mind, then it becomes easier for you to build the game sense and exactly react accordingly, like any pro player does. All right. Now the third step is just knowing how it affects you as a player, and when you know how it affects you, it's again changing your 5 big themes. I can maybe mark that as I did here with the yellow. Yeah, anything marked as yellow, it's more of a important thing to keep an eye on, or like bold text here. Yeah, this is something what you gotta keep an eye on more. And the 5 themes: decisions, positioning, timing, tempo, mechanics, just what I gotta be doing regarding those things. Yeah, maybe I gotta change my position, maybe I need to change the timing of my engagement because I tracked something of what their team is doing or my team is doing. It's so important. Okay, by the way, I promise you, there's gonna be not only this presentation, which is gonna start with the theory, and then there are gonna be more practical examples I prepared for you. There's gonna be I think 5 videos we're gonna be watching, maybe even more if I have time, or if you have any questions, I can exactly pull those up too. That's all right. Yeah, we can watch all of those too. All right, let's move to the next slide. By the way, do you guys have any questions? Message me right away. I don't think we're able. And maybe I can actually invite you to the stage here. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm able to. But yeah, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'm looking at the chat right now. Is everything clear? Is the slide clear enough? All right. Anyway, we can be moving to exact examples. And let's just keep this formula in mind. Again, we're scouting, and then we exactly breaking it down with 3 questions and thinking about how it affects you. Yeah, how this here information affects you as a player. And we're gonna be starting with Anna example, and let's just maybe pretend that the player here, yeah, I kind of done it as example how you can be doing that. So keep that in mind. Maybe you will do it differently, but anyway, we're starting with decisions. Yeah, let's just try to pretend that we're trying to scout for enemy decisions. What that could be. Decisions can consist of understanding of compositions. Yeah, any compositional differences. It can be your team, the enemy team. It can also be understanding of what cooldowns are available there in the field. It can be defensive. It can be any big burst damage or any sort of CC. It can also be ultimates. Ultimates can be the part of decisions. It's just something what it's important to use at the right time, the right place. Also, your HP bars, maybe target priority. This could also be the part of this big theme. Yeah, just pretend those are small variables here within the theme. Now, in my example, let's just pretend. Yeah, pretend that out of all of these variables here, we're choosing cooldowns to be aware of. Yeah, let's just pretend that. So what our thought process can be. Because here, we just physically not going to be able to cover everything because Overwatch is just such a big game. Yeah, there are a lot of variables to be able to track of. And that's why let's just pretend that we're choosing one example to be aware of, just exactly the cooldowns. And let's pretend, yeah, because we have to choose, do we track? Yeah, do we track your team or the enemy? We pretend that we're tracking the enemy team. And the questions you gotta be asking yourself is what your attention should be on. If I'm trying to track the cooldowns, it means then I have to keep an eye on the animations. I have to press tab for initial tracking. And that's where, let me just pull up this video here. Is going to be ML7, Anna's gameplay. Yep, we're just going to keep going back to this page on the presentation here. But yeah, just being more specific to this game. If we're playing Anna here, we're going to be aware of the enemy cooldowns. What kind of cooldowns I can be aware. Yeah, let's just go back a little bit. Yeah, this is ML7. Yeah, just starting out right here. You will see that once we play this out a little bit, maybe I can also make it just a little bit louder sound. Let me also actually turn it down just a little bit. Okay, so they instantly notice that there's a Doomfist on the enemy team. Maybe there could also be the other guys. Yeah, we can just start talking whatever, honestly. But because there's a Doomfist, potentially what we can keep an eye on, what kind of visuals? Visuals of the punch, visuals of the slam, when he's using those. Yeah, and this makes it easy for you to perform your next actions. We're going to talk about that later. But yeah, let's just start with the basics. Yeah, at least 2 cooldowns. Ideally, you as a player, when you're building your Gamesense, you don't have to track too many things. You can only start with 1-2 cooldowns, and then later on, you can start with more and more. It becomes more intuitive. Yeah, you sort of will exactly know who used what, when they used that, do they have this at all, stuff like that, really. So we're starting out with this, and maybe there's one more variable which we can be tracking potentially. Let's just say it's going to be any big burst damage on the enemy team. I think the enemy will have Zenyatta. From what I remember, you cannot see that right now, but they have Zenyatta, and let's just pretend we're tracking their big burst damage. It's going to be their right click. It's also somewhat of a cooldown. Yeah, let's just put it this way, because it takes a lot of time to charge. Yeah, even though it's not exactly visible. Yeah, you can't exactly see the charged right click, but anyway. So once we've done that, we exactly know the cooldowns. What are we going to be doing? And to just be able to track those, it's look at animations. You also need to press tab to remind yourself what kind of characters you keep an eye on for initial tracking. And with when you do that, it's just whenever, I think before the fight especially, just remind yourself what kind of cooldowns you keep track on. And with where you do that, yeah, what kind of position you're on is usually once you're safe around cover, you're more free to scout for this information. It just, again, pretend this here, you can break it down however you want to. Just make it easy and specific for you as a player. Yeah, maybe you can start tracking the cooldown in the middle of the fight. Maybe you can also start tracking the cooldowns once you, I don't know, once you took an off angle or something, or once you took a high ground. You just notice that it's harder for you to do, it's harder for you to track the cooldown once you at the specific position. So exactly, let's start to do that. Yeah, those questions here just meant to give you an example of how it looks like. Yeah, that's why I mentioned example. Yeah, this is one of the examples. Anyway, once we know the cooldowns, then we're thinking how it affects you as a player. What are you going to be doing? And you're choosing from one of the themes. It can be your decisions, positioning, timing, tempo, mechanics. Again, it just might seem a little bit complicated in theory, but once you prepared your own notes somewhere, once you have your own spreadsheet somewhere, this makes it easy right away. You will exactly know, okay, let's maybe make it this way. So I track the enemy cooldowns, and then I will take a look at how it's changing my decisions. Yeah, how do I use my own cooldowns to specify with? Yeah, because this is how we break down the decisions. At least I done it for you. Yeah, at least this is how I do that. So in case of ML7, if we go back, what he can keep an eye on is his sleep dart and nade. So if I know that Doomfist uses something, then how it affects my cooldowns usage, what I'm gonna be doing. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. I think, generally speaking, as Ana, you can punish the aggression. Usually, what you are looking for as anyone, ideally, is when the enemies are using something, they're using the cooldown, then you need to answer with your own cooldown. That's how it looks like. So they use something cheaper, they use the cooldowns, you answer with your cooldowns right after. That's the most ideal scenario. So if you see the Doomfist use bunch of stuff, let's just go back. Yeah. Doomfist used the slam. Did you hear the slam sound? And he also using the block right there. So this can be a good trigger for us to start doing something. And it's all done because we are tracking. Maybe ML7 right now, they don't think about that here exactly, but at least they sort of, they have it, they build it intuitively. So they're able to exactly sleep this, yeah, react accordingly. Yeah, they also maybe see there's another setting cooldown they're affected by, it's the nade, so they have to play defensively. Yeah, we're not really focusing on positioning, but in theory you could be. You could also be thinking about how it affects your positioning, how it affects your maybe timing or tempo, or maybe even mechanics. Yeah, it's just, you as a player want to make it easy for you. You want to focus on one simple thing when you're building your game sense. For example, here, we start taking space, that's fine, yeah, and then right after, we're looking at where the enemy is, we're trying to keep track on the cooldowns. Again, same stuff about the Doomfist, maybe it's gonna be the M ability, maybe it's gonna be something like Zenyatta's right click, which we will see later, by the way. They will have Zenyatta. Okay, we see that the Genji died. Okay, they're trying to sleep here, that's fine. It's just the sleep before the fight here, it's sort of more forgiving, because you usually get your cooldowns back by the time when the actual fight happens. Okay, looking for the nade here.
It's a very hyper-aggressive team. You go first.
Yeah, they even say that, yeah, how to play versus this kind of team, and see what that they're doing is exactly checking. Now we are pressing tab, we're checking what's happening. Maybe they made some swaps, so I have to be aware of the other cooldowns. That's not necessarily exactly what they're thinking about. Yeah, so in their mind, it's more intuitive, and they're able to adjust multiple seams right away. Yeah, they're able to adjust their mechanics, they're able to adjust their timing. But you as a player to start with, just only think about 1-2 rivals, simple rivals. Okay, what they have Doomfist, so mobility, slam, punch. Maybe it can also be this here. Zenyatta right click can be quite scary. Maybe Ana nade, Ana sleep dart. But just start talking with 1-2 cooldowns.
You always go first.
We're looking at this.
I will get booped up.
How do we want to play? You see, this guy even says, I may get booped off. Yeah, I may get booped off. Why? Because they're aware of the Doomfist. They're aware that the Doomfist might punch them. That's why they have to adjust their positioning. They have to play more defensively here. But they exactly prepared the cooldowns. They prepared the cooldowns for it. They have the nade, it's more offensive cooldown, it's fine to use early, but the sleep dart's gonna be more defensive, so we're exactly waiting for something to happen first before we are using that. Yeah, did you hear that too? They said that. Yeah, I'm waiting for the Doomfist to engage, saving the sleep dart for that, exactly. They know how the actions, how the cooldowns of the enemy are affecting them. Again, we're getting back to this part. Yeah, maybe we could also be viewing it differently. Yeah, maybe we can break it down to compositional perspective, so any other perspective. But honestly, you guys, I'm pretty confident you guys are smart, and you can also do it by yourself later. I'm just here to give you examples of how you can be doing that potentially. Anyway, do you guys have any questions about this support example here, or is it simple enough? If no questions, we will be moving forward. for mechanics theme, how do we build game sense for that like trigger discipline? That's a good question. That is something what I'm gonna talk about later. I think there are so many variables to keep track on. Yeah, it just can be the enemy movement. If I track the enemy movement and I exactly anticipate where they are, does it make easy for me to replace the crosshair? Yes, 100%. I can position accordingly to where the enemies are moving. And at the same time, you can also maybe look for the patterns. You can look for any sort of, yeah, honestly, it can be anything within the mechanics. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's going to be just right after a few examples here, because we're going to be talking about each theme here right away. It's going to be decisions, positioning, timing, tempo. I just want to give you at least one example for each theme, how it looks like. Okay, now we're finished with decisions. I think let's just start with another theme. It's going to be positioning. Let's just pretend that we're trying to scout that team. Yeah, again, we're using this formula, scout for something. So let's pretend that we're scouting the positioning. And positioning, in my opinion, at least it's something what it may consist of. It can be angles, it can be range, it can be cover, and then we are choosing, let's pretend that we're choosing angles to be aware of. Yeah, we as a player, we go in the game, we're choosing that. We're choosing that as a player to just track, to track a little bit. And what we're going to be doing is, let's track angles of the enemy team. Yeah, again, you can be tracking both. It's either your team or the enemy. So let's just pretend we do that. And with the questions to give us better direction, what our attention should be on. If I try, sorry, if I try to track enemy angles, then that means I need to anticipate their location. I need to try to press tab a little bit more. I think this is also important to add. Yeah, press tab as well to anticipate. Yeah, by the way, all the notes here I'm making with you guys, and just in general, what do you see, I will send it to you. There's going to be a channel Notify. I will make it this way so you'll be able to access those notes too. All for free, no problem. There's going to be, yeah, it's going to be right on the channel. Also, yeah, the other question, when to do it? Maybe let's just pretend that we're trying to track before and in the middle of the fight. This is something what I personally think is okay to do if you're trying to think about the enemy angles, where they might be. It's, again, can be an example of, you can still break it down a little bit more, but yeah, with where you do that. Before entering the angle, or maybe once you're at the angle, because we're going to be watching the tracer here, it's going to be really important that we adjust based on how the fight goes. If we enter in the specific sight line, we expect to be contested, maybe there's going to be an enemy tracer or something, then I want to adjust. By the way, yeah, let me just move the video for you. Yeah, so this is going to be Top Dragon on the tracer. Maybe you guys know that. That player is really good tracer. They're playing tracer a lot, and this is one of the games. It's from Overwatch Cup, yeah, World Finals, and here we see that the quite interesting teams here. Yeah, a lot of the good players, Hawk, Lap, also the. You just want to say, you guys should be familiar with most of the players, I think. So yeah. Anyway, they start with a SimTP, and it's just for their team, so they move to the point faster, and then they go into Tracer here right away. The same does the blue team here as well, but anyway, we are thinking about tracking the enemy angles. What we can start with? Well, first, you don't know that the enemy has this comp, so you have to just start with scouting on the field. Yeah, kind of play it slow, see what they have. Maybe your diva also gives you information or anyone. Yeah, they're more likely to just what's it called? Try to ping. Yeah, there's a ping system, so you see a lot of pings to just let the tracer know who is taking off angles, who is doing what. And once I know that information, this makes it easy for me to move on the angle, maybe adjust my playstyle. Yeah, let's just say in our example here, we will be exactly focusing on positioning. You can be focusing on anything else, decisions, timing, but for the sake of this example, we're going to be focusing on positioning, how do they take angles. So if we know that there is Ashe taking an off angle. What's our response? Well, we cannot really fight an Ashe. We should be avoiding the Ashe at this range. So maybe it's worth it to just try to flank around, yeah, find an alternative route, do not be exposed to this. But meanwhile, if we know that they have a Tracer and the Kiriko and also Brig, then we should be aware that they will contest us at the short range. So once you know this information, it will help you out. Where do you go and how do you do that? You see, there's a lot of check marks like this. Tracer's here, and then Top Dragon knows that, and they exactly point their crosshair towards this location. You have a tracking the enemy cooldowns and adjusting enemy positioning, because all the guys are here. This lane is more free. What they available to do? Maybe they can try to go deeper. Maybe they can just start approaching from this angle. Maybe they can start pushing this way. Yeah, it's just their positioning is adjusting based on this picture. Also, for some reason, something's up with the video. Just give me 1 second. Let me try to restart it. Okay. Hopefully the stream is still working. Yeah, I think the stream is still working. Okay. Oh, I see. It's a YouTube ad. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, just 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, let's move right towards this example here again. We are on this left side. Yep, so they started and no information about everyone. So what they available to do? Maybe move the left side. Maybe do anything else. That's why you have to ask yourself actively how it affects your positioning. If the diva is pushing me, how it affects your positioning. Yeah, should you give up the position? Should you do anything else? But don't try to make it too complicated. Don't try to think about everything. Don't think about everything. Just start with one simple thing, and then later on you build on that. You build on that information. You'll be able to track where the Tracer is, where the Ashe is. You don't have to be perfect like any pro player is. Just assume, yeah, try to think what is the more valuable play you can do with your positioning, yeah, based on your character skit. And then this will make it easy for you to also keep track on the, once you able to do that comfortably, you will be able later to track other variables too. Yeah, you just maybe their cooldowns or how to time pressure with my tank or my team. Think about like all of that is like a big mechanism. Overwatch is big mechanism of those 5 themes, in my opinion. How can you implement decisions? How can you implement positioning, timing all together? And mechanics too, of course. But see, exactly, because we talked about the angles, how free this angle is for the top dragon. Yeah, because we exactly knew location of anybody on the field, especially who is taking angle. And now, because we also may know that the Tracer is over here, I think people on their team is also calling that out more likely. But we've never seen anybody on the right side, so we're more expecting the Tracer to be on the left. So now it becomes so much easier for me to just do something. Yeah, for this top dragon, do something. And it can be even just with the mechanics purely. It's just so much easier to keep your crosshair here because you know that the Tracer is there. Imagine you have a wall hack, but it's just in your head. It's your mind game. Yeah, in your mind. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, anyway, do you guys have any questions for this segment? It's just been an example of tracking the enemy positioning, adjusting your gameplay. By the way, if we have time, we can get back to those examples. There's no problem. Okay, if there are no questions, let's move forward. I think the next example is going to be for the Winston, and I've wanted to specifically choose the tempo theme. The tempo theme is the most complicated one, to be honest. So maybe, I'm thinking, what if we actually just move that slide to the last part? Yeah, and maybe start with something like timing first. Yeah, I'll just start with timing. For the timing, I chose one of the replays from Vendetta, and it's honestly, a lot of people recently requested me how to play Vendetta, what do I do, how do I exactly position as a character. Brief introduction to this character is mostly about taking short-range flanks. You can flank a lot, but you're also able to use verticality comfortably. So you see that this play here, they will do that quite well. Just give me 1 second. I will move the video. Okay. It's gotta be right there. Just give me 1 second. Okay, I think I lost the video. Okay, it just moved somewhere. Okay, I still have the link just in case. Okay, let's actually use this link here then. Okay. It's gonna take some time to load. Okay.
YouTube Premium is
Yeah, there's also the ad. Let me skip that, actually. Okay, sorry about that, guys. And yeah, should be all good now. Okay, just 3 extra seconds. Yeah, anyway. Okay, we are good here. Okay, let's just move this on my first screen, and here we go. Yeah, so Vendetta. And what we're going to be focusing on is the timing. Yeah, let's just pretend that we are looking at the timing theme, and timing can consist of multiple variables. It can consist of how do you time pressure with your tank, how do you time pressure around the big CDs, yeah. It can also be anything else, even just timing pressure with ultimates. Yeah, I'll just put it this way, timing with ults of my team. Yeah, maybe it can also be timing with let's just say timing with X teammate. Yeah, there's gonna be someone you need to time your pressure with, someone important to you, someone maybe you play duo queue with. It doesn't matter. It just makes it easy for you to time the pressure. Generally speaking, when you're able to time around your tank, time around the big cooldowns, that's good enough. This is really big already. So let's just try to choose one of the things we can be tracking on, and let's just start with tank. Let's pretend that we're being aware of the tank, and we need to focus on your team. In this case, just track your tank for what they're doing. Your questions, CWs, it helps to break it down a little bit more. Yeah, that's my tank engage. Do I know that this is happening? And after that, we're choosing how it affects you. Yeah, we're thinking how it affects you as a player. And what I want to focus on is how it affects your decisions. As an example, yeah, it can also affect your positioning, affect your timing, but let's just mention, yeah, let's just talk about how do we use our cooldowns a little bit more. All right, let's move forward to this example then. Yeah, you will see, this is Vendetta. It's also one of the pro matches, actually, so really interesting to see play Vendetta here. I think the character is quite fun. There's a lot of things you can be doing. You instantly see them looking for initial rotation, very common, just using the E, pushing forward, and then using the spin to get in a position. And then after that, to remind us again, what are we doing is we're timing the pressure with our tank. So what are we going to be keeping an eye on is exactly where our tank is. Yeah, keeping an eye on exactly their cooldown status. Because we have Zarya here. It's really important to time your pressure with the bubbles, so maybe we can look for initial poke, but you don't want to be too greedy unless your tank can absorb the pressure or lets you absorb the pressure with a bubble here. So this is mostly about that. You see they actually get bubbled, but they quickly get out because they recognize, okay, the tank is still not there. Initially they got bubbled, so it's a fine, but then later on we need to wait for our Zarya to pressure actively, and before that, if they don't do so, then we are simply setting up. Yeah, we're simply getting better position. Once our tank gets aggressive, that's what you can track on your real games too. At any point of time, when you're in the game, you will see there will be those markers. You can see it here because I think this is the replay, but when you're in your real game, you see those check marks, they look like this. It's just gonna be blue by default. But when your teammates are taking the damage, it becomes yellow. So this way it becomes much easier for you to also know that the guy's taking damage. Also, pressing your tab and just checking for the HP. Maybe, sometimes it can be valuable. Also, just look after their positioning. Yeah, just exactly look after how they use the cooldowns. And if I know my tank goes in, I can go more aggressive. It's just so much easier. Okay, yeah, let's maybe also turn the sound on, just in case. So you guys also hear the sounds. Yeah, anyway, we're done this fight, and then we do the same. Yeah, we're thinking, yeah, by the way, about our cooldowns, yeah, let's just talk about those a little bit more. If we keep an eye on how they are gonna be playing with us, if my tank is engaging, then a lot of the times, what you will start with is your E, because it allows you to just get extra height, and you can also start with your hand sword animation. Yeah, when it looks like this, basically. You will see them so in the E. Yep, so this here. This does critical damage. It just does a lot. And you exactly using the cooldowns to time the pressure, nail it together with your team. Especially your tank, for the starters. If I'm constantly aware of what my tank is doing, what the ability status are, then I can engage more comfortably. You see them getting a lot of kills. Seems like it looks easy for them, right? but they are aware of so much stuff on the field. Okay, now we're just setting up and mostly need to time the pressure without tank, and before that you're still able to do the damage, you're able to do the pressure, but you have to be careful. Most of your cooldown straight is going to be done right when the tank is in. Yeah, so you see that I'm also setting up on the short range off angle. Yep, that's going to be usually okay, using extra verticality, because when you drop from the positions like this, you can start with your critical sword damage, but it doesn't matter what character you guys play. Just understand your kit, what allows you to do. Generally speaking, the more mobility you have on the character, the deeper angle you can take. So this is going to be quite okay. Yeah, this is going to be quite okay angle. To start with, they do a little bit of poke damage. They're still waiting for the main aggression from the Zarya. When my Zarya is aggressive, let's scout. Yeah, I'm constantly looking around and constantly checking. Yeah, my Zarya, see that here, exactly. They exactly looked and see, okay, even though they probably, they're in a voice, but you don't have to communicate everything in the voice chat. You, first of all, have to always look at the information of the field and then react accordingly. Yep, because I know this information that my Zarya is over here, how it affects my cooldowns. Do I have to engage now? No, I have to wait. Yeah, do I have to engage later? Well, probably just once my Zarya goes in, once they use the bubble or something, especially on me here. So this goes quite okay. Unfortunately, they got bursted. They kind of messed up with their abilities here, but overall, this is okay. Yeah, just a little bit. I would expect the blue team to go a little bit more aggressive. Still, you can see that even the best players in the world, they still make mistake. They still can make mistakes, and at the same time, they're also really good players in the enemy team, so they do expect those engagements. They will be preparing for it to react. Keep that in mind. Okay, I think we kind of done for this example. But yeah, we can be breaking down anything. We can be breaking down how you can time the pressure on big CDs. It's just anything. What does a lot of burst, what does a lot of CC can also be the case. Yeah, maybe how do you time pressure with ultimates? It's just one of the examples that we're trying to exactly look after out the tank. Yeah, remember, this can be the part of your homework, guys. Just really focus on one of the themes I suggested. Yeah, those smaller topics within the big theme, which is timing, or maybe anything else like positioning. It can be decisions, it can be mechanics or tempo. We'll talk about it later. And then try to do this exercise. Yet, if it's really hard, if it's hard for you to track all the variables, just make it easy. Break it down a little bit more. 1-2 things to focus on. That's enough. You don't have to track everything. You don't have to track your cooldowns, the enemy cooldowns, your tank going in. Just one variable or two. That's enough. Okay, let's just move forward to mechanics. That's your part. Gemini. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think, yeah, I do hopefully I pronounce your name correctly. Yeah, sorry if I'm not. Yeah, anyway. If you have any questions about this here, I would be glad to answer. But as an example, what I prepared of, they're going to be brief 2 clips of Tracer and Zenyatta. I think there's going to be the front playing Zenyatta and Tracer. It's going to be Kragi. And generally speaking, mechanics might consist of, because there are a lot of topics, but it might consist of something like movement, crosshair placement, and other aim-specific details. That's how I just call that for now, because there's so many nuances, but I'm just gonna start with the simple, something you can already think about in your next games. For example, if you see the enemy, are they scoped in or not scoped in? Yeah, because you see they apply certain mechanic. Yeah, they apply something on the field. Then this makes you react differently to this information. Yeah, because you see something like that, this makes a different reaction. Yeah, you see certain movement, you see certain crosshair placement. Yep, all of that affects you. I think it's really important to look for the patterns. Yeah, let's just put it this way. Note, yeah, look for the patterns. It can be anything within the mechanics. Just anything small, anything or what you notice the player does. Yeah, maybe they are always strafing in one way. Yeah, maybe they're always scoped in, stuff like that. Anyway, After that, once we know this information, we can break it down with all the questions. What are we going to keep an eye on when you do that? I think in our case, let's pretend that we are trying to keep an eye on if the target is scoped in or not. That's what I prepared some examples for. And in this case, what we need to be looking at is animation. Animation simply. If you look at any character in Overwatch, they have specific animations for anything. For example, if the Ana scoped in, there will be kind of similar crosshair to this. Yeah, this image here. It's just gonna be really close, the gun really close to our face, limited vision, limited field of view. So it's much harder for this Ana player or anybody who's scoped in like that, like this Ash or Widowmaker or anyone else, to be reacting to the information. So if I know this mechanic's been applied, yeah, because I've been scouting for this specific mechanic, then this makes it easy for me to understand what I'm gonna do next. Yeah, let's pretend that we will be, it will be, yeah, let's just pretend that we are gonna be focusing on our decisions, and decisions specifically, how do we use our cooldowns a little bit more. So for example, I think it's so much easier to start with. Yeah, let's just start with the Kragi right away on the Tracer. This is one of the parts of my videos as well. I used this example back in the days too. But anyway, you see that the Kragi here is on the off angle, is going really for the D flank here. And you see this player, they're scoped in. What does it mean for Kragi? What do you guys expect him to do with your cooldowns if you see that? Also, don't forget, you can break it down to any other theme. Yeah, maybe how it affects your positioning, how it affects your timing. Does it mean you can engage earlier? Does it mean that you can perform certain mechanics with more confidence? Yeah, for example, mechanically, what can you do in here? Yeah, should you be trying to strafe? Or should you try to stand still? Well, the answer is probably standing still once you're getting close is going to be okay-ish if they don't notice, because they're not putting pressure on you. Yep, all that stuff. Yeah, but let's specifically focus on our cooldowns. What do we expect to do with the blinks? Well, more likely, we can just get in. It's so much easier because this Ana is not aware of us. Let's say this Ana would be already shooting us. Yeah, let's say they would be really ready for us to move on this angle. Well, in this case, we can just start dodging that instantly, and because we start dodging that instantly with the blinks, then we might. It might be harder for us to win 1v1. You see, Kragi, they're actually not using all the blinks right away. Yeah, they're kind of moving in because they see, oh, the Ana is not aware, so I can keep moving, and then I get closer with one extra blink to get close, and then this is a free shooting. You see, they're not moving at all even, because this target is scoped in. We're exactly aware of that. Yep. And now, once they see animation, then their movement is going to be affected. Yeah, they're going to be reacting to that with the blink. Is because you're aware of that, you're trying to build your game sense. Yeah, like we talked about on decisions. Yeah, being aware of the cooldowns, being aware of the anything the enemy does, and then you will play accordingly to it. By the way, they got a kill on Diana. There's just a kind of skipped the video, but yeah, anyway, right here, there's gonna be not a second duel. You see what this Ash is doing? She is scoped in, and that means she can do a lot of damage on us, and she's looking at us. Yeah, if she's looking at us, then it means we have to dodge. If we have to dodge, then it means we have to use the cooldowns. Yeah, we have to use the blinks here. Yeah, and you see them crouch a lot. Yeah, how different this engages compared to the Ana initially. Because we're under pressure, we have to make our movement more chaotic. They don't even think about it too much, yeah, but it's more intuitive. Yeah, because they've been in those situations so many times. Yeah, and see, this Ash panics now. They kind of messed up a little, but yeah, the Kragi is just able to get a kill right away. Okay, I have one more clip for you. One more clip. So this is gonna be the front playing Zenyatta. I believe it's one of unranked GMs, but same idea. Scouting specific mechanic the enemy does. Maybe we can also look after any patterns, anything else you notice on the field. Yeah, but the scoped in or not, it's also the pattern. Yeah, if you notice, oh, they use this pattern. For example, here you see the Ash. It's a pattern of being scoped in right now. So what I can do with my cooldowns, I'm free to charge my right click a little bit more. Also, I think there's gonna be a YouTube ad one more time. Yeah, let's keep that. Just give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, YouTube ads are bombarding me. Okay. Okay, now we're ready to skip this ad. Okay, here we go. So, this right there, because they scoped in, we're more free to do the right click. Yeah, there's usually somewhat of a bigger action you can do if there's somebody scoped in. Yeah, they're looking for the right click. And there's also Discord on this guy too, so that makes it easy. They kind of miss the shots, but still, the purpose is fine. The decision is fine around it. That's why they kill the Ash right away. Now, we may watch for any other patterns the enemy are doing. Yeah, and by the way, being aware of the enemies, where they are, scouting their comp, it helps a lot. You see, the best players, they always press the tab, they always scout for information and downtime. If I'm in this situation where nothing is happening, yeah, I don't see an enemy, I don't see my team, scout. Scout with the tab, yeah, just in case. Still, let your brain comprehend. Yeah, even though you will not be able to adjust all based on all of the variables here, at least you start tracking their widow. If I start tracking their widow, what does it mean for me? Can I keep track on that? Do they scoped in or not? Yeah, same about Iana. Maybe try to run their cooldowns. Yeah, scout specific mechanic. By the way, that's exactly what's happening. Yeah, this widow scoped in, so I think they heard them too. Let's actually see. Are they able to hear them? Yeah, there are footsteps. There are footsteps right here. The widow was not scoped in right away. They started to be scoped in after, so they get the body shot and it's not as critical damage. The front may potentially win this. He should be, but unfortunately he's missing the shots. It's happening sometimes. It's alright. Anyway, this is just, again, to understand that even the best players, they still can die a lot of the times. Yeah, after that, they able to get a kill. They move on those off angles, deep flanks here. It's I think from what I remember, I think it's around the flat lobby here, but still, it's easier for me to show you on this examples because the lower the rank of the player is, the more the slower and the slower they are, and the easier it's to notice the pattern, like when they scoped in or whatnot. Because at the high tier, yes, we can also watch the same. The players are also doing the same, but it's so fast, so it's really hard to notice exactly. Yeah, how can we track the mechanics? Yeah, how can we exactly be good at trigger discipline? Yeah, all of that stuff. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, especially Gemini. Do you have any questions? Yeah, because you asked the question about mechanics. Just out of curiosity. Yeah, if there's anything what you want me to add, anything what you're interested in, a little bit more. Because so far, no questions. Thank you. Okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah, but so far, all those themes here, crosshair placement. Yeah, maybe it can also be your other aim-specific details. By the way, those topics are really large, and there are a lot of themes, as you can notice. I will be breaking down all those themes later. It will be in Guides on Metafy. I will also do the classes later on here on the Metafy too. It's going to be breaking down a lot of the stuff. You know, we're just keeping it simple. One topic, yeah, kind of one example for one theme, so you guys can build the game sense already. I hope this is going to be specific enough information which you can apply. All right, let's move forward. And yeah, we watched a couple of the examples here. Let's just move to the final example. To really say this is one of the hardest. This is one of the hardest to keep an eye on. Is just understanding of the tempo. And tempo usually can consist of multiple things which can give you either advantage or disadvantage. That's how I view this topic. It's just, if I know, for example, anybody on your team, they tell you, oh, we have the tempo. What does it mean? That means that you guys have an advantage. That means that you can be using that somehow. What advantage can be based on? It can be everything. It can be everything. That's why I put in your resources. It's just the status of the cooldowns, HP, ultimates. It can be the numbers, how many people are alive, how many people are dead, ultimates being used currently. It can also affect your plan as well. By the way, I separate this. Normal ultimates, just you have an ultimate, and ultimates being used is another story. Yeah, because in theory, this ultimate here, if you just have it, it's more of a passive power. And in the same time, if ultimate's being used, then that means that there's more active power. That's how I would put it. Also, the Metafy says that yeah, the class is gonna end in 10 minutes. Okay, I think we should be good. I think we should have enough time to go over every possible example here. But yeah, anyway, let's keep watching. So far, numbers, yeah, it's really important to keep an eye on. And yeah, the last thing is compositional. Yeah, compositional details. Composition can give you understanding of how you can perform. Yeah, how it affects your tempo a little bit. So in our case, let's just pretend that we're choosing to track enemy numbers and enemy resources. And this is going to be this game, one of the pro games again. The Winston here. Okay, we're tracking how many people we have alive, how many people the enemy has alive, and then we are reacting accordingly. Yeah, we're able to exactly adjust everything based of that. Also, are we getting another YouTube ad? I think yes. I think we do. I have to reload. have to reload the player. Yeah, we get the Discord ads nonstop, every 10 minutes. All right, let's just wait 2 seconds. Okay, here we go. Here we go. It's ready. It's ready. Okay. Now we are keeping an eye on what this Winston is going to be doing, and mostly being aware of the numbers and resources. Yeah, let's just keep track on that. And in case of the tempo, to make it easy for you guys, I usually suggest just track your or the enemy team at the start. You just understand how many people you have alive, how many people the enemy has alive, and then react accordingly. It's fine. Yeah, think how it affects you. In this example, I just chose to be aware of how we're gonna be positioning, and positioning can be specified to how do we take angles. That's how I did put it. I'm just giving you real example, yeah, because I don't want it to be too vague. Okay, let's just understand how it affects our positioning, but positioning it consists of multiple things, as we mentioned here. Yet, how do we play range? How do we play cover? It can be too many things. So let's just start with angles. We'll look at the Winston. Okay, so right away, we're starting out is playing more neutral fight. Yeah, there's nothing's happening. We just have to scout and see what's going on. And are we okay? We good? Yeah. So they start moving up. This is the usual angle to take, and then they start using their resource. They're using their bubble. Why? Because the enemies are playing faster. Yeah, they being aggressive towards the Winston here, and there's a lot of the cooldowns needs to be blocked. In Syria, the tempo to just start with, it's not only the numbers and ultimates being used. Yeah, it's not let's put it this way: ultimates and numbers, how many people alive and everything, is the most important. But at the same time, resources, the cooldowns like that, it can also affect the tempo. So we see the boops coming in. We see that there's a lot of poke damage from the echoes coming in. There's also Freya. So one cooldown to trade this, yeah, one bubble to trade this can be okay. A share can be okay, even trade. You know, if you are practicing in your games, how you can do that is just try to look at how much cooldown costs in terms of the time. So for example here, the bubble is what? It's somewhat of around 10 seconds. Oh, actually 12 seconds, yeah. So it's 12 seconds cooldown. Now, if I know there's 12 seconds cooldown, how much of a cooldown is the boop? How much of a cooldown is this Echo Bomb? Maybe it's also Freya, shots, and try to summarize everything. If you did better cooldown trade, if they have a bit better, yeah, let's say you have a lower amount of time, compared to them as a summary, then it should be okay. Yeah, one bubble for every possible cooldown in the game, possibly can be alright. They also use the bubble there, by the way, so it works quite good. And that's what the tanking is most of the time, and honestly playing as any other character too overall. So we're doing that exactly, yeah, reacting accordingly to what the cooldown trade is. How many people are alive? Still similar, 5v5, so this is fine. But now the cooldown trade, yeah, what is happening now? We're using this bubble. Now let's just maybe go back a little. See, the enemy makes rotation. We're trying to trap them in a choke. Now this bubble potentially forces the Zarya to bubble this Echo. They separated the Echo slightly because they cannot get healing. That forces the bubble on that, yeah, partially at least. And then there's also Suzu coming in. If you saw that guys briefly, Suzu coming in, And this is just one bubble. One bubble there was really well timed, and that means we can play faster tempo now. We can play faster. We can go in and use that advantage. That's how I would put it. Yeah, hope that makes sense. Hope that makes sense, guys. Yeah. Anyway, I think this is one of the examples I've wanted to show, but do you guys have any questions about this one? Maybe I can also elaborate on whatever the theme you're interested in a little bit more. Because so far, even though this is one of the most important topics, yeah, it just really consists of everything I said before. Yeah, this here, I think it's nice if you can do your own homework in a way. But yeah, what I will do later is I will also try to break down everything in the meta file later on. Okay, I see there are no questions, at least in the chat here. If there will be any questions in the recording later, just, well, somewhere in the YouTube or something like that, then let me know, guys. Okay, from what I see is we are almost over. So what I wanted to say is, finally, there's going to be a YouTube video, which you can watch. It's all posted on my YouTube channel, just for additional text for anything what we could be going over. I also mentioned around 4 texts there, along with what I mentioned today. Yeah, there's been one of the largest texts. Yeah, being able to understand the enemy, what are they doing? Also understand your team, what are they doing? I gave you 5 examples to summarize with. Usually, you can scout for one of the themes, such as decisions, positioning, timing, tempo, understanding of your mechanics, or the enemy mechanics. Yeah, we can talk both enemy or your team, and then you breaking it down with the questions, 3 W's for better direction. What are you doing? When are you doing that? Where are you doing that? And it's gonna affect your decisions after. I mean, well, those entire themes again. It's either your decisions, positioning, timing, or how you are adjusting based off the tempo or mechanics. Yeah, for example, if the enemy stands still, what does it tell me in terms of mechanics? I can probably stand still as well. If they're scoped in, they don't notice me. Yeah, they are not aware of me. If they're aware of me, I'm gonna be moving. Yep, there's a lot of this small stuff. I will be breaking it down more and more in the next classes. Okay, anyway, you guys can also watch this video. There's more additional topics. And what I want to say is, if you if you have time, I also prepared you sort of homework. It's going to be your own homework. I'm going to post the notes here in the Metafy. What I want you to do is to follow this here. It's going to be exact formula here, but I want you to try to choose one of the themes you will be tracking in your next games. Try to be specific with exact the variable you're trying to scout for. Yeah, it can be, I don't know, it can be the enemy position, it can be the enemy cooldowns, it can be anything else. And then give yourself a bit better direction, and then after that understand how it affects you as a player. So you adjust based on your enemy's patterns for the current game. Yes, yes and no at the same time. This is one of the things you have to keep in mind. Yeah, the patterns in the game, but there are also some generalities which you will see, right? For example, timing the pressure with the tank is always going to be there. Maybe taking an angle, the way, well, for example, you expect Tracer to take an angle all the time. Yeah, most likely. So they will be there. But obviously, the game itself, it gives you additional context. Now, let's put it this way. There are always fundamentals, but the fundamentals can be tweaked slightly based on the game context. What do you see? What is happening? Because you will less likely see Anna being scoped in at the high tier lobby way too much, right? It's gonna be pretty tough. Also, let me just add extra time, guys. Okay, I just added extra time for the event just in case, because Metafy might end it. Alright, anyway, we are... Yeah, so with this here, we have to adjust as well, but first off, start with fundamentals, and after that, once you know what the theme you're going to be focusing on, break it down with the questions, you understand how it affects you, all that stuff. It's just like that, just like that. I hope that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, it's definitely There's definitely quite a lot. Yeah, there's definitely quite a lot to comprehend in one go, so take it step by step. Step by step, one theme or topic at a time. Yeah, try to exactly use this, and it's gonna be here in your homework. Yeah, this is how I break down each theme. Maybe you can also add anything else, but honestly, for average player, I think there's gonna be enough. Maybe even higher rank player, honestly, there's gonna be quite a lot already. Just you trying to understand what kind of cooldowns your pressure is, how do you adjust, numbers, movement, resources, angles, all that stuff. By the way, guys, for the next times, this pretty big project I have right now, I'm preparing this big. It's sort of gonna be big guides on each themes, and it's gonna be here on the Matterify, and also there's gonna be posted on my website too, more likely. So all the links, for the Matterify. Well, you can find it on my own profile. You can go in the guides. I can show you, by the way. It's just real quick. If you see my stream here, yeah, you're just gonna click this here, guides. It's gonna be all there. I'm also gonna be keeping you updated on the posts, so you can access to all of this. And one more thing, because there will be more classes. Some of the classes will be completely free. I'm just gonna be doing those from time to time, and some of the classes gonna be more it's what's called available to the subs for the Metafy. And if you want to sub for the community, it's gonna be this link here. I'm gonna post it in the chat just in case. It's gonna be in the descriptions of the just everywhere. Yeah, it's gonna be everywhere on the YouTube. Also, I'm gonna be posting it right here in the masterclasses. I think I will make the channel, the separate channel for it, so you guys can have all the info, the entire presentation too. It's gonna be available to you. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we're good to end. Do you guys have any final questions? Anything really? If not, then I think we're good to end the event. Okay, I don't see any questions so far, so I will stop.